great privilege to request Mrs. Straceny to welcome the family and friends who are joining us from Europe. Mrs. Straceny will light a candle that will burn throughout the ceremony. Gabe, over to you, Mrs. Straceny, to light the candle and address family. Candle is lit.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Mrs. Straceny.
Hi, Jay. Hi, everybody.
Bato, moving forward. Now we'll watch a 1 minute video. Incredible. Bato, thank you. Requesting Veronica. Veronica, Chuck's partner, and personal and professional business partner, who was by his side when he suddenly passed. Veronica.
Oh, yes, I'm here. I'm Veronica Yu. Charles and I have been together for 7 years. I'm very lucky to spend 7 years with him. In fact, we just had an anniversary in August 16th. We have so many good memories together. In fact, we are always together. We never argued, not even once.
Wow.
How can I argue with that big man with loud voice? And we never passed a day without laughs. He never skipped a day telling me good morning and good night and how much he loved me with a big smile. He was a man with compassion and such a selfless person. I have so many stories to share with you guys. He touched many people's lives and it was all about connecting with people. He taught me a lot about life. One day, we're at the elevator. He told me, Veronica, when you see someone in front of you, it doesn't matter, the stranger, smile at them and say hello. It may make their day. He taught me kindness and he taught me what is the true love. I miss him a lot. I honor his life and his beliefs. And I will live my life connecting with people and help people. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Veronica, thank you. And I know this is the most painful period for all of us. Next, Bato. Bato, who's Chuck's brother. Yeah, you all know him. I grew up knowing as Bato or Kurt. I really called you Kurt. Bato, over to you.
Thanks, Jason, and thank you, Veronica, for the warming speech. Good early morning, 1 a.m., 119 from Tokyo, Japan. And on behalf of my family and closest friends and Veronica, we'd like to thank all of you for joining. So it's been a hard time for our family just because of the coronavirus. Can't get home, can't help out. So I appreciate your time. Everyone who all knows Charles so well, aka the Chuckster, he never lived a dull moment, and he lived life to his fullest. His exes even said it was like dating David Lee Roth, Diamond Dave, and his buddies would always rely on him to spruce up the atmosphere on any occasion. So he was always wanted in some way for a good time, right? So he's a very lifted, positive, spiritual person. I like to take a moment to talk about my brother and his incredible love for life. And he lived life on his own terms and never apologized for who he was. So what can I really say about Charles? Well, so many words come to mind, but so many we can say in a church or at a funeral. But I'll give it a shot, okay? We'll keep it short and sweet. Charles was a man of love. He loved his friends, he loved his family, but most of all, he loved his penis. The only part of him that ever had an actual job. Wait, hold on. This is Charlie Sheen's eulogy. One more time. Sorry, Mama. But most of all, he loved his muscles, every 600 of them, and loved them all equally, as any parent loves their children equally. My relationship with my brother was great. Sure, we fought, but we had more laughter in our lives than arguments. So I got to experience living with him as a sibling at the parents' house, and then I got experience living with him in BC as a bachelor. So it was quite the experience living with him. Due to his size, though, you would think that I was always in trouble with him. But I'll tell you a funny story one time. I was coming home one day from work, and I came a little bit early, and my parents were in the upstairs living room. And I asked them, "Where's Dolly?" But the way I pronounce it, Canadian people think I'm saying Dolly. Well, that's right. I call him Dolly because, you know, Charles, Charlie, always in front of the mirror, trying to look like a doll, the long hair. So I mixed the Charlie and doll, you know, dolling around, so make it Dolly. So, so my parents told me he was downstairs, but they requested me not to go down there and bother him. I was like, "What's going on?" And they said he's a little down. And so I'm like, "Okay, whatever." So I turned around, went down the stairs, and I said, "This is my chance to be a good brother, right?" So I came down all full of energy, and I yelled out, "Hey, bro, what's up?" He mumbled nothing, just watching a show. Lying on this hide-a-bed across, I sat across the room on a sofa, and I asked him, what's wrong? He said, "Nothing." I said, "Bullshit." I go, "Lana dump you or something?" He goes, "No, it was mutual." I was like, "Okay, all right." I started teasing him that he had bad luck with the ladies recently. So he told me to shut up, and if I opened my mouth one more time, with his exact words were, "Shut up. If you say another word, I'll smash your face in." I laughed and I said, "Dream on, crybaby." And he jumped faster than you can imagine. He started throwing punches. Our dad came running down the stairs to my brother's rescue. And he grabbed me and threw me back. And I said, "Oh, I see. Tati, you have to save your life again." My dad took me upstairs by the ear and he whispered, "I saved your life, man." Good times. Those are damn good times, eh? But we also shared some good memories too. So, you know, the best of times, you know, always coming home, visit Mama. So this one time I was coming for Christmas. It was probably the last time we were home for Christmas together. And I arrived in Vancouver from Tokyo. I got picked up, went to his place in Poco, showered, repacked my bag, and we went back to the airport. Well, I booked the tickets for us in Japan. And when we got to Vancouver airport, and I said, okay, you're on that, and I'm on this. He goes, what do you mean? We're not flying together? I'm like, of course not, buddy. What do you mean? Like, we got the same last name, man. They're going to put us together on the plane. You think I want to sit beside some gorilla? So I bought him his ticket with WestJet, and I took the Air Canada flight. So we were standing in our separate areas, and I got stuck in the middle seat after flying 8 hours from Tokyo. I was like, oh my God, I got to sit in the middle. And he came back. We met up on the other side to go eat Subway. And he's like, I just got like window seat. No one's beside me. And I was like, oh man, we should change planes. No way, man. So next thing we part off security. I'm at the gate. We're texting each other. That's Blackberries. That was just like at the end of it. And sitting there, and next thing I'm just grumpy. I'm thinking, oh my God, I can't do this, man. So we're texting, and then Air Canada pages me. They're like, excuse me, we have a problem. The plane is overbooked. I'm like, so I'm not going to be able to get on the flight today? No, but do you mind sitting in business class? I'm like, yeah, no, I don't mind at all. So I text my brother. I'm like, I'm in business class, buddy. Bullshit. So I'm taking pictures. And I'm sending them over him, and he's like, what? He's getting choked, eh? So the whole time I'm eating lots of food, just eating away. And we get to my mom's, and Christmas Eve, we're not supposed to eat meat, but I was getting free food. I couldn't say no. I was eating all this cannelloni, lasagna, and everything. We got to my mom's, and my brother was so hungry, man. So hungry. I couldn't even eat at all. But that was one of the best moments I shared with him. So it's unfortunate that he left at a young age. So. And I appreciate all the heartwarming messages everybody sent out to my mother, myself, and Veronica, and other family. And my closing remark is, don't forget who we are. Just because one of us is gone, we're still a family. Thank you. Thank you, Jason.
Bato, thank you. That was so precious. But now handing over to Bato to press play on the next video.
Childhood living is easy to do. The things you wanted, I bought them for you. Graceless lady, you know how I am. You know I can't let you slide through my hands. 'Cause wild horses can't drag me away. Wild horses couldn't drag me away. I watched you suffer, in pain. Now you decided to show me the same. but no sweet thing exists. Oh, off stage line could make me feel bitter or treat you unkind. Yeah. Wild horses couldn't drag me away. Wild, wild horses couldn't drag me away. I know I've dreamed you asleep and alive. I got my freedom, but I don't have much time. Faith has been broken, tears must be cried. Let's do some living after love dies. 'Cause wild horses couldn't drag me away. Wild, wild horses.
Bato, that was brilliant. Thanks. Colleagues, yes, we just took a trip from the Straceny arrival in Winnipeg, Canada on that cold winter day in 1968 to a few days ago. Moving forward, colleagues, yeah, it's a solemn occasion. It's a memorial. It's a tribute to Chuck. Moving on. We have a few speakers who are going to provide a bit of a eulogy. I'm a bit sensitive to time zones, and first inviting someone that who's a mentor to all of us. Dr. Paul Bronick himself from Jakarta, Indonesia, who's also joining us in the middle of the night.
Thanks, Jay. I really appreciate you leading us through this extraordinarily important moment. Hey, Mrs. Straceny, Bato, Veronica, friends. I'm calling in from Indonesia, as Jason mentioned, where I've been working with UNICEF for the past 5 years. And Jason blames me for being one of Chuck's mentors, but in fact, what I'd like to share is really how Charles Straceny has been one of the driving forces in my life and has been a teacher of so many extraordinary, valuable lessons. I remember being in high school when Charles and crew would come by at really 7 p.m. sharp. Mostly on my parents are away on their curly nights. The lights would go down. Def Leppard would come on inevitably. The liquor cabinet would be methodically emptied. By 10 p.m., everybody was out. The vodka bottles were topped up to that pencil line that was so carefully marked with crystal clear Manitoba water. Chuck drove me to be both on time and precise, and that stays with me forever. He also drove me to be better at math. I'll always remember my North End calculus lessons from Chuck's Academy. Volume of alcohol times percent times price per liter divided by the number of friends that were going to pay for it. He called it the cheap drunk equation. To me, it was a lesson in practical brilliance. One summer in medical school, Chuck, Jason, and I drove from Winnipeg to New York. and back, we made it back. After 2 days on the road, we ended up in Toronto, and the first thing we did, of course, is stop at a bar. Not being able to afford a place to stay by the time we got out, we drove out of the city, ended up sleeping in the car. So at 6 a.m. when we woke up with the windows all fogged, I put it into drive and heard a thunk and started to feel the vehicle rocking. It turns out that the chassis of the car was balanced on this cliff that had like a 20-meter drop because we were at a construction site. So of course I call a tow truck, and Chuck jumps out of the car and notices that the bulldozer guys had just arrived for their shift. So soon enough, we were back on our way, leaving the bulldozer and the tow truck guys to fight it out. And what Chuck taught me, the lesson he taught me there was really about, despite the larger potholes on the journey, we must always dig deep and be resilient. He was incredible like that. He also drove me to recognize that life is always better than theater. I remember Chuck joining us on a trip to Vegas a few years back. His flight was scheduled to arrive at 10 in the evening, but by morning, we were all expecting him, but no word from Chuck. Flight had arrived, he was on it, but nothing. Of course, knowing Chuck, we started calling the police stations. Mrs. Straceny, I'm not sure you've heard this story. Of course, we started calling the police stations, only to find that Chuck ended up being admitted to one of the local hospitals and was in the intensive care unit. It turns out that he stopped breathing in a parking lot after being roofied by some Cirque du Soleil dancers. I saw him at the breakfast buffet the next morning, and he was happy as ever. And all he could say is that he had a sore throat. As a doctor, I said, well, Chuck, maybe that's because you had an intubation. And all he was really worried about was that one of the Cirque du Soleil dancers might have taken advantage of him. So that's Chuck. And well, sometimes he drove me crazy, but Charles Straceny was always larger than life, in body and in spirit. And during this time of COVID and virtual funerals, it's very special for me to be today with so many friends and family from across the planet, to remember how Chuck infected all of us with his uncomplicated humor, his loyal friendship, and his really basic sense of goodness. And what happens in Vegas never stays in Vegas, really because the stories are too good and they have to be told. So rest in peace, brother. The world will shine a little more dim in your absence. Thanks, Jay.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for joining us at such an ungodly hour in Jakarta. Moving on. The next speaker we have Barrister Ron Simonek.
Friends, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Good evening. This is a very difficult thing for a lot of us to deal with. No one was expecting this to happen, and when one's trying to do a eulogy, you often try to come up with some funny anecdotes to lighten the mood and stories that will resonate with people that maybe weren't there for the stories. But what I discovered when I was trying to determine what stories I could tell about Chuck, it seems clear that there are more stories that I can't share publicly than I can. But what I'll try to do is just give you a couple snippets of my experience with Chuck. In 1982 to 1986, we were all playing hockey together. That's how a lot of our friendships started. Vince Lee Bruins, 1982 to 86. We were about 12 to 16 during that period. Chuck, Jay, Pino, Livio, Chris, and I, and there were others too, I'm sure. We played. Pino was our goalie for most of those years. Jay and I were defense. Livio had the best slap shot. Chuck and Chris scored most of the goals. And there was this recurring rivalry between Chuck and Jay that developed. I mean, whenever we'd get together in our 30s and in that time period, whenever we'd get together, we'd be drinking and we'd talk about how great we were back when we were 16 and 15 and 14. But the recurring rivalry was who was the MVP of our team. who was the real MVP. And so one of these occasions, just a few years ago, as I recall it, we were all sitting around and Pino was there. And so Pino being, diplomatic and neutral and the goalie, he was asked, Pino, who do you think, after Jay and Chuck were bickering back and forth for probably an hour or more, who do you think the MVP was? And Pino, in his normally diplomatic tone, just said, after having a sip of rye, he said, you all sucked. I carried the team. Didn't want to offend anybody. And, but as fortune would have it, my dad is a bit of a hoarder. And so at one point he told me that, and my dad, I should have mentioned, was the coach of our team along with Mr. Straceny. And my dad kept all the game sheets from all those years ago, and he gave them to me, and I started reviewing them, and I had this idea. Well, after reviewing them, it looked like what I decided to do is put together a book, because stats don't lie. And after I reviewed all these game sheets, and I put a cover page on it and put Chuck's, as I recall, Chuck's picture on it, and you may have seen the picture in one of the slides there. From junior high, it said, Chuck Straceny, are you really number one? That's my recollection. I think I put that on the title page of that book. And I gave it to him as a birthday present sometime in our 30s. And I said, here, Chuck, give this to Jay next time he's around, and because you are the MVP. You scored more goals than anybody on our team. And I think he appreciated that. Although Jay still protested they were not certified copies of the game sheets. But another short story I'll tell you about was we were in junior high, around 83, grade 8 as I recall, and Chuck, Chris, Rusak, and I were restless, and we did what normal kids do in grade 8. We skipped school, and so Chuck, Chris, and I would often end up at my place on afternoons occasionally, and I'm not sure why we ended up at my place, but it was probably because if we had showed up at Chuck's place where Mrs. Straceny was, she would have likely beaten us for skipping school. So many an afternoon, we were ending up at my place, and on the way there, we would, this was the 80s, so 83, and VCRs and video rental stores were plenty. And Chuck said, it's okay, we can get our education through cinema. And so we would go to the video store, and Chuck insisted that we rent the series of movies by Cheech and Chong. And so we would rent these movies, and we would sit in my living room, watch these movies, laugh hysterically at this other world that these two cultural icons were showing us. And then the silliness would sort of would expand to our reality, because at some point Chuck thought it was really funny to call multiple taxis to my neighbor across the street. So we would be sitting there peeking out my front window, watching 3, 4, 5 taxis all show up across the street from my house, laughing like there's no tomorrow. That was the mindset of our 13-year-old brains. But Chuck always had a way to make things fun. And as we all know, in the 90s, late 90s, Chuck moved to BC, and he took his charm and character to BC and made many, many friends there, several of whom I became very acquainted with, including Billy and Kiko. But even though Chuck was in BC, and I was in school, and Jay was either in school or traveling the world, and Pino and Livio were working on their businesses, we all still kept in touch. A lot of those times were through vacations, and one of those times was Mexico, I think it was 1997, and Terry was there, Corey, Frank, and we all planned to go to Puerto Vallarta. So me coming from Winnipeg and all those guys mostly coming from Vancouver, I got there late I think later that day or the next day. And so Chuck assured me, he says, no, when you get there, I'll come get you. I'll come get you. Which I thought was great. What a nice gesture, because I didn't know where the hotel was. And so my flight landed around 10 o'clock or so, and I got off the plane and I sat on the bench waiting for Chuck to come get me. And soon the airport was empty and quiet. There was 2 or 3 cabs in front, and it just dawned on me, like, what am I doing here? There's no way Chuck is going to come here and get me at 10 o'clock at night in Puerto Vallarta. Why am I sitting here? So I hop in a cab. This is right. I mean, cell phones were not smartphones back then. So I don't remember how I figured out a way to get to the hotel, but I figured out a way to get to the hotel. I figured out a way to get to the bar that they were at. And I managed to track him down. I walked in and I heard him. I walked up to him. I tapped him on the back. He turned around. His eyes lit up and he smiled and he gave me a kiss on the cheek and screamed out, "Ronster, I knew you'd find me." So, you know, I you just can't help but love the guy. I've never been mad at him in the 38 or so years that I've known him. But a question I've heard from many people over the years is, how are you guys all friends? You're all so different. And to me, the answer is kind of obvious when I think about it. We all became friends when life was simple, when we didn't know who we truly were, who we'd become, where we were going, or what we wanted, because none of that mattered in grade 6. And as the years passed, we all developed our own passions and interests and goals, but that never took us away from each other. Whether it's a wedding, an anniversary, a birthday, or some other milestone event, we were always there for each other. It just happened naturally. And many occasions we'd find ourselves in Mrs. Stracely's kitchen when Chuck would come in from Vancouver, or when we'd all meet back in Winnipeg, because when Chuck came home, it was a feeding frenzy. Mrs. Straceny, all she could do was cook and cook and cook, because all he did was eat and eat and eat. Or if we weren't there, we would pick up Livio or meet Livio at Tenz's Pizza or Pino's Cottage. And if not there, we were probably in the Pronic's basement, drinking, as Paul said, Jerry's scotch and his beer. So although in recent years, Chuck had developed an affinity for White Zinfandel, which got him verbally abused quite a bit. But seriously, he ultimately, it really was just a conglomeration of families. And that's my main point here. Two things. We never really stopped growing up. So we were always together. So when you ask the question, you know, how are you guys all so different? And it's because we were friends at an early age and we never left each other. And the second point I wanted to make is we're friends with our friends' families, and so they were our families. And so just as we've shared all those happy milestones, we've also shared the painful ones. And we share this one with you, Mrs. Straceny and Bato. And just as we shared with you in 2008 when Carl passed, and just as we shared in 2001 when Dan passed for the Pronics, we shared that. We shared with the Bertosas in 2012 when Mr. Bertosa passed, in 2016 when Mr. Potenza passed. And so these are our families. It's not just a hodgepodge group of friends. But in closing, I just want to share one short story with you that Chuck shared with me back when his father was ill. He had said that he had been visiting his father in the hospital, and at a quiet moment when they were alone, his dad took his hand and he said to him how proud he was of him for becoming such a great man. And Chuck at first told me, he said that he first thought that this was just something a father would say to his son in a situation where Carl was so gravely ill. But Carl was wise, and Carl didn't just make some stereotypical comment like that to make Chuck feel better. He actually backed it up. And what he said to him was incredible. What he said was, he knew Chuck was a great man, and he knew he raised a great man, because when he looked around and he saw how many strong and close friends and friendships Chuck had in his life, he could see how much his friends cared for him as well. So that led him to clearly conclude that Chuck had become a very good person. And he was right. And I think that from seeing the outpouring of social media emotion following Chuck's passing, it's unquestionable that was accurate. I don't think Carl could have imagined how many people Chuck touched. And so for me, life for me was better with him in the world, and I'm going to miss him terribly. Thank you.
Ron, profound. God, thanks. No words. What a testimonial. Those game sheets in the mail, but profound. Mariana, another sort of part of us growing up in Winnipeg.
Hi everyone. I'm one of the early exes, and virtually we became best friends. So my speech is a bit long, so please bear with me. It is with heavy hearts that we've come here today, both friends and family, in grief and in shock. Thus, we're all united not only to pay our respects to Charles Straceny, known to most as Chuck, but also our need to grieve. Such was Chuck's extraordinary charisma and appeal that thousands of people across Canada, the United States, Europe, and Asia feel that they've lost someone who meant so much to us all. You know, it doesn't seem that 33 years have passed since I first met Chuck. Dating Chuck, which is my line, Bato, by the way, was like dating David Lee Roth. Every moment was an unpredictable adventure, but I wouldn't change a single moment. Thus, I'm glad Chuck was my first love, and he will forever have a special place in my heart. More importantly, over the years, we developed a bond, a deeper friendship. He was always there for me through thick and thin, especially when my mother passed. He is one of the kindest, most understanding, and most generous of souls. Chuck was the very essence of charm, charisma, and character. I still laugh at my favorite one-liners, which were his specialty. For instance, I remember during one of his past visits home, when the old gang got together, we were sharing photos and admiring how beautiful a mutual daughter has become. Always the ultimate ladies' man. I chided him, saying out loud, "Don't show Chuck, he may try to date her." Not missing a beat, Chuck replied with his quick charm and wit, "What are you talking about? I haven't dated a 14-year-old since I was 10. Laughter. But that was Chuck. He was always the fun-loving, charismatic guy who everyone loved. His infectious humor allowed us to be transported back to our younger and often wilder days. From dancing on tables at UNF to jumping Mike Mercury's walls for the 10th time until he made it past the bouncers at Grand Beach, all the way to his Salsa King days in Vancouver. Chuck never stopped being Chuck. But it's not that Chuck was just the life of the party. He was the party. Girls wanted to date him and guys wanted to be like him. After all, he was the Chuckster. A persona he developed, a persona which he became. So much so, he had Chuckster printed boldly across Camaro back in the late 80s, just in case you missed the long hair and the Motley Crue cranked coming down the street. He may have been the king of the North End, but he didn't consider him the king of the universe. Because for Chuck, first came Arnold, then came the Ultimate Warrior, followed by the Macho Man Randy Savage, and then came the Chuckster. However, these are not merely idols for Chuck. They became a part of his persona. I could still hear him in my mind, imitating the Macho Man way back in the days of the Diamond Club. As the lights would go down at the end of the night, you could hear Chuck screaming, "Elizabeth!" doing his Macho Man Savage poses. But there's so much more to Chuck. He was a symbol of love and freedom, someone with a natural ability to touch all those around him. He had a particular brand of magic, which made it possible for him to connect with others. For instance, I always found it unique and remarkable that he remained best friends with his core group going back to his EP days. Truly a band of brothers. Jason, Ron, Pino, Livio, and Joey. Along with Chuck, you all deserve a tribute to your unique devotion to that friendship. Chuck brightened our lives, and we will feel cheated that he was taken from us much too early. Today is our chance to say thank you for the way you brightened those lives, for which we are all grateful. We'd like you to know that life without you will never be quite the same, and the strength of your character has afforded us the strength to carry on. You've always stood tall with the qualities of a human being who is the best friend. Your wonderful, mischievous sense of humor, your forever one-liners, and your trademark laugh. Your joy for life transmitted wherever you brought your smile. Your greatest gift was the ability to bring everyone together. If we looked what it was about you that had such wide appeal, we would find that it was your generous soul, your ability to make others laugh, and your free spirit, which allowed you to live life on your own terms, because that was something that we can only dream of doing. Chuck always preferred to play like a man rather than work for the man, due to his desire for freedom. Still, for all his glory on stage, be it with acting or bodybuilding, Chuck remained a down-to-earth guy. Everyone cherished him for his character and his honesty. However, there's so much more to Chuck. There's also a serious intellectual side. He was a voracious reader, an analytical thinker, and a formidable debater. I suppose now I'll never know the secret to why he hated Dr. Fauci so much. Thus, I'll always cherish those days of deep conversations about politics, books, and language. And as such, he became the darling of his Toastmasters Club. There was yet another side to Chuck, which was dedicated to health, fitness, and competing on stage. However, what never changed was his quest for knowledge. He was on a permanent crusade to lift others up. If you were having a bad day, you could be sure that after a 10-minute conversation with Chuck, you'd be left laughing. His genuine kindness was one of his sterling attributes. He wanted us to come here today to celebrate his life. We're all grief-stricken by the loss of a person who brightened our lives, no matter what hardships he was facing. You will never be extinguished from our minds. We will continue to remember all the good times and recount all those wonderful memories. That was the extraordinary and irreplaceable Chuck. Thank you.
Marina, thank you.
You're welcome.
Brilliant. Billy, over to you.
I've been friends with Chuck for 31 years. He's been a great inspiration for me. Chuck had his heroes, like, obviously there's a lot of rock stars that he loved, but he loved Arnold. And for me, I had Chuck. He was my hero. 31 years of friendship. You can say he's my best friend, but he was more than that. He was my brother. As some of you know, that I lost my brother, my actual brother, but I just lost my other brother. It's kind of a hard thing to think that you're not going to grow old with your best friend. Chuck was a person I called pretty much for every event, every family event. Once, maybe twice a week, sometimes 3. Maybe I wouldn't talk to him for a week or 2, but it never mattered. Conversations were usually debates, and the debates were never arguments. We never judge each other by our thoughts and how we argued our points. It always came back to, I love you, brother. And I think, I know Chuck. He would always end his conversations with, love you, bro. And, I can tell you that I didn't know this part about Chuck, but I had his phone after he passed, and I had to answer a lot of, people messaging him. And I wasn't scrolling through or looking through anything that he was talking about, but I noticed that all these conversations from these messages, from the last time he talked to that person, it was always, love you, bro. That's just like, he had so many people in his life that just didn't like him, but loved him. And I guess everybody carried him through life, and he made some big impacts, that's for sure. Chuck had his high points in life, and he wasn't a very rich guy, but he always managed to do more things than me. He always vacations, and he always managed to have the best times, and he was always in a positive frame of mind. Always. 31 years that I knew him, there was only maybe just 2 or 3 times that I've ever experienced him hitting low points. And which brings me to a low point. He was living on Vancouver Island in Nanaimo, and he was there for a couple of years. I was destroyed when he left Vancouver because I wouldn't see him so much. I was actually devastated by it. But he was living his life over there and didn't know much about it. But a couple of years after he was living there, he called me, and he was losing it. And he told me he was parked on the side of his road, on the side of the road with his truck that broke down, and he just unloaded how his life was going, and it was just disaster. So I said, I'll be right over. I got in my truck, I grabbed my trailer, hopped on the next ferry, and I went and moved him back to Vancouver into my house. And he lived with me for 6 months. He was extremely grateful, and I just said, "Don't worry about it, man. Fuck, you're my bro. I love you to death, and we'll get through this, no problem." Him and I laid on the couch every single day, watched TV, argued, and debated with each other about pretty much everything. But I wanted him to stay there just to get himself back on his feet so he can, you know, get back his life and everything. And after 6 months of him being there, I said, "Chuck, you know, you got to move out." I didn't want to have him move out, but I know that if somebody's living in your house and, you know, they're not doing much with themselves, that they're just going to stay there. And I said, you know, you got to do something with your life. And I didn't want him out because I felt that he was, you know, a problem in my house. Like, I had a big house. There was no problems at all. It was just that I knew that he would get his life back as soon as he went back out into the world and started doing his thing. And he did. I think he was pissed off at me or something. I don't know, whatever. He's a little mad at me for that, but I didn't do it because I wanted him to be mad at me. I did it because I wanted him to get his life back together. And then ever since then, he managed to cope, and he seemed okay. And there was never another problem that seemed like it was that bad with him. We shared pretty much everything. Conversations were deep. Anytime I had a problem, he was the first person I called. That's tough. That's the hardest part, is not being able to pick up the phone and chat with him. I can hear his voice no matter what, and I still have conversations with him. They may be short, but I know exactly what he would say. It's just like, I know exactly the next words. I know everything he would say, and I'm grateful for that. He, I don't know, he was just always positive, and he, man, I just can't even begin to tell you how amazing a person he is. And I know a lot of you know him very, very close, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I know, and even Veronica, we talked about it the other day, that everybody says to her and to myself that I can still hear his voice. It's just not a voice that's going to go away. And I'm thankful for it, because I can still talk to him. I don't know if anybody else can do that, but I can. I'm very, very, very grateful for 31 years with him. It's been a bit of a run. Well, if he was here, he'd say, "Shut up, man, just talk." I'm trying to. But listen, I don't want to sit here and cry. But he was the best man at my wedding. I'm sure he was at a few other weddings. He was bloody uncomfortable in his suit, but he was there for me. There's so much to talk about with him. I just don't know where to go right now. I didn't want to write a bunch of things down, and I just wanted to talk from the heart. And I think you guys can all see exactly how I feel. I'm sure a lot of you still feel the same way. I'm going to miss him. I'll always be inspired by him. And what a great guy. Don't think I'll ever meet anybody like him ever again. I hope to stay in contact with the people that Chuck shared his life with that I know. Joe, Dave Mack, Silveria, like Ron, Jay, Bato, I love you, man. You're my brother. And I won't take any more time. I'll let some other people speak, but I love you, Chuck. You're the best.
Hey, Billy, love you, bro. Thanks, Billy. I still hear that. I still hear that same voice. And both
Everybody go.
made those same calls. And Chuck picked up always. Right, from the strangest of places. Thanks, Billy, love you, bro. Bato, let's shift right into you have another fantastic video.
We have a musician who put together a song on a classical guitar, Mr. Jason Eastwood.
Okay, so we're shifting to Jason Eastwood. You're a passionate musician, professor of cosmic vibes. Jason, welcome. You can find his albums online. And the funny, not the funny thing, but when Carla Neva first, we saw it in your first video about when Carla Neva first moved from Bratislava to Winnipeg after the tanks rolled in. They lived steps away from the Canadian legend Burton Cummings. And I recall many evenings on Murray Avenue, talking with Carla Neva about those first few days arriving in Winnipeg's North End, steps away from Burton Cummings, hearing stories about the glorious Danube River and the treasures of Bratislava. And Jason, who's playing for us now, had one of his first lessons from Winnipeg's own Burton Cummings.
Chuck Straceny, David Lee Roth, Ric Flair, Vince Neil, every other cool person you ever met in your life combined. Love the guy. We shared some great musical times, as I'm sure you did. And this one's going out to you, Chuck. Love you, Chuck. Forever.
Okay, Jay, thanks. That was fantastic. So, Blair, over to you.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Blair Rakowski, and I met Chuck about 30 years ago. I'm giving my deepest condolences to Eva, Mrs. Straceny, Bato, his brother, and Veronica Yu. He says his true love of his life. So I met Chuck over 30 years ago. He came, and basically I met him once before. I got into a fight. He watched. But I was at Chris's Submarine after the bars, and he came in there, and he all full of energy in the way he always was. He was always, bouncing around, and he says, "Oh, you're crazy, man. You're just like." And I'm thinking, who are you in all this, right? And like, I'm so crazy, why are you talking to me, right? But he kept talking to me, and right there and then that night, we became like really, really good friends. That was at Chris's Inn years and years ago. He watched me fight at Club Soda, he said, in a couple places. And, I don't know why he approached me, but how he came in and he has his long hair and his David Lee Roth look, and he was bouncing around, and he was just, I envied that guy. He was, you can talk with somebody that I was envious of, not because he was, bigger, better looking, he had women all the time, but because he lived life to the fullest. I was more of an introvert, but he was that guy that, I could watch and I could live life through him. Like, he was just an awesome guy. He didn't want to settle down and lead a humdrum life. Instead, he went after what he wanted. And I learned from that. I remember he took DJ school to be a radio announcer, but he found out he didn't have to be a DJ to be a celebrity. He was a celebrity in life as it is. People knew him all over the world, all over Canada, Winnipeg, like everybody knew him. He walked in, people wanted to be his friend. People wanted to know him. He was a celebrity, but he still became a celebrity. He went on to be, TV and commercials. He did something most men want to do. He became immortalized in TV and commercials. Like, there'll always be something of him forever and ever. So he's done something that we can all really admire and wish to attain. So, so being that way, being really a celebrity, he had so many friends. As people grow older, you sort of distance from your friends. But no, not Chuck. He had his true friends forever and ever. He had friendships, childhood friendships that he had forever, like best friends that he still calls like Livio, Pino, Joey, Ron, Jason, Chris. These are friends that he had forever and ever. And he still always had contact with them. Most people don't have that, and he still did that. And then later on in life, years later, being teenager, young adult, he met friends like Brad and Sam and Terry and Lauren. These people, he's always, and he never speaks bad about anybody. He was always a true friend to everybody. He was always somebody you can count on. He was one of those people that, like I said, I can always look up to. We followed different paths in lives, but he was always somebody that, to me, he was an icon. Well, he had such a strong desire for bodybuilding and working out, and that he became an icon in the industry. It was just too bad that he kept sleeping in for most of his bodybuilding shows and he couldn't make it on stage. But, he was an inspiration to bodybuilding. We trained together. It was one of those things where we got to train. It'd be like Franco and Arnold. Of course, I was Franco and he was Arnold. But the thing is, we would always it would be competitions, like put more weight in, put more weight and stuff like that. There was weights there that I couldn't even roll downhill pushing it with a truck nowadays. But that's, he was always trying to do better and better and better. He was an inspiration. At a young age, he competed for Mr. Manitoba. And because of that, he inspired me to compete at an older age. I figured he did that. I want to do it. I would never attain his level, but I got to do it. However, he was not only inspiration in bodybuilding and nutrition. He taught me if you wanted something, you have to go out and get it yourself. He taught me to stop being an introvert and get out and get the things I need. I chose a different path. I got I got 3 degrees and I got my designation, and I went off to be, my job. But I still always envy him because he was one of those people. I remember he was my roommate, and he said, Blair, I can't stay another winter here in Winnipeg. And he says, I want to go to BC. So it was going to be winter. So I don't use my convertible in the winter. He took my MGB, my convertible, it was supposed to be for the winter. I got it a couple of years later, and it was a permanent convertible because the roof never worked or nothing after. But the thing is, that car had never seen such excitement until Chuck, had it. He was telling me about, driving it in the mountains and under the influence, about whatever. And I'm thinking, Chuck, don't tell me about my baby like that, right? But he lived life to the fullest. So he went to BC. He did so many different things. And yes, he had his ups and his downs, and he told me about all his ventures. A lot of this stuff we cannot talk about on here. You have to be cautious. But the thing is, he was always a great guy. No matter what he was doing, he was always that true friend and that loving person. And he was always there to help you and talk to you. So when he finally met Veronica, he said that she was the love of his life. And he was very happy. And with his life, he became a nutritionist and trainer now, and he was living life great. He accomplished what he needed to, what he wanted to, and he was very happy. But with all the great stuff going on in his life, family was always important. He loved them so much. He has never said a bad word about any of them, but he always great things, especially his mother's cooking. It was always great cooking. He would come back from BC and it was always his mom's cooking. It was great. There was even a funny story that he did not want to disappoint his family, that when his family found some supplements in his gym bag, he was told it was Blair's. And so I had to, but the thing is, nowadays, I wish I could still get those things back, but no, either way. The one thing is his love for friendships and for people. Here's a story. I still live in Winnipeg, outside of Winnipeg. He lived in BC. I became the president of the Manitoba Bodybuilding Association, and I went to Edmonton to watch the national competition. And I got into a little disagreement with some people, and all of a sudden there's a guy that showed up, and he says, "Hi, Chuck told me to watch out for you." He says, "Do you need me to take care of these people?" And I said, "No," but he was always looking out for us, no matter what, right? He was always that kind of a friend. So everyone is lucky to have known Chuck. I know Chuck is with us today and smiling at the beautiful memories we have shared and the ones we have. So on behalf of my friend, thank you very much.
Blair, fantastic. Thanks. Another message of living larger than life. Same that Anne-Marie's putting in the chat box for us. Kiko.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Hey, yes, we can hear you. You're EA. All right. Hi, Kiko.
Okay, well, thank you for letting me talk. I'm not the best talker, so I'm going to try my best. Please bear with me, okay? I'm pretty emotional right now. But I want to wish everybody a good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are. I'm one of the many honored to call Chuck Straceny my friend. I'm grateful that he was such a huge part of my life, and as he was with everyone he came across. Chuck's energy and force is one that will hold us, as his huge spirit, positive energies are boundless. I find it difficult to think and speak of him in past terms, although painful. I smile as, Chuck created the best and most unforgettable memories. When I first met Chuck back in the mid-90s, he and Taz had just arrived from Vancouver, from Winnipeg late at night. I recall, like a slow-motion movie, this Chippendale dancer gets slowly out of the car, muscular, long hair, blue eyes. And the first thing I thought, I need to keep this guy away from my girlfriend. Taz, well, he looked like he was from Winnipeg, so he was no threat. Who knew that day would be the beginning of a newfound friendship? Over the next 20 years, we shared many experiences, laughs, and good times. Wherever we went, Chuck was quite quick to make friends with everyone. No one was to shy away from anything, and his personality was bigger than his physique. The term larger than life is the best way I can explain them. Chuck's approachability, easygoing nature made it so that he would never go to the pub for just a quick drink. So many times strangers would start a conversation with him, and he always had time for everyone that wanted to chat and was too polite to refuse a drink. Those days usually ended with his famous Macho Man Savages or his quotes from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. What I respected so much about Chuck is he never judged anybody. He listened openly with concern and empathy, and he was 100% genuine. He was always modest, never bragged about his accomplishment, and wasn't out to impress anybody. Chuck was loyal and protective of his friends and stepped up on my behalf more than once because of my mouth. No one messed with me when he was around. Chuck was proud of his Slovak heritage and told me about his family and his strong values growing up in Winnipeg. He would speak highly of his longtime friends as if they were family, friends like Jason, Ron, Pino, Joe, and Blair, and all the great stories of their upbringing. Chuck was a great storyteller, and we loved hearing them. But Chuck was at the best when you knocked a few drinks into him. These stories that Chuck would share with his friends would have similar themes, and I could tell how Chuck valued his friends, relationships, and family. Even during my own personal struggles, Chuck was always someone I could depend on to be there for me. Today is a day I think Chuck would want us to celebrate his life. He would want us to share our stories, share our memories, laugh, and smile. Chuck wouldn't want us to be sad. We were so lucky to have him in our life, and we were better for it. I know this will be hard for us because there only will ever be one Chuckster, and one day when it comes my time to leave this earth, he'll be on the other side smiling and quoting me something from Steinfeld. Thank you, guys.
Okay, thanks, thank you. Bato's going to show us three commercials, and that Chuck left us with.
What can Del Taco do to make people believe we grill marinated chicken every day? How can we tell people we use real cilantro for our handmade pico de gallo? Or that we slow cook our beans from scratch for over 3 hours? You don't tell them, you show them. Real ingredients at real low prices. It's not unbelievable, it's unfreshing believable.
You, the ultimate fitness fan, are you totally obsessed with your training? Are you meticulous with your diet? Well, then Muscle Insider wants you. Enter the Ultimate Fitness Fan contest for your chance to win over $10,000 in cash and prizes, including a trip to the Arnold Sports Festival. All you have to do is upload a photo or video of you and show us why you are the Ultimate Fitness Fan. Drop in the hashtag Ultimate Fitness Fan and we'll do the rest.
I don't know. I feel like the Earth is our future. Our children's future.
We are so the same. For real.
Wow.
More sellers, more buyers. Autotrader.ca, the most cars in one place.
brilliant. Where can we find those? I guess these are, if you want to see a rerun of these, they'll be on Chuck's memorial Facebook page, and also archived in the recording of this tribute. A couple people have pinged me to speak. Ron Paltrow.
Hi. Thanks for the opportunity to say something. You got me loud and clear there. It's all working.
It's all working great.
Yeah, I just wanted to come on and just speak on behalf of, if I could, on behalf of everyone from West Coast Iron, the gym that Chuck's been training at. Well, he's been in that gym for over a decade, but it was different owners and different names and stuff. And we're very proud and happy to have him there since we opened 3 years ago. And I've known Chuck from competing at nationals and the BC bodybuilding scene. And, really touching and amazing to hear all the, the more personal stories of, the people from Winnipeg that he grew up with. And I just wanted to say, personally, Chuck and I spoke every single time I saw him in the gym. Every single day I went into the gym, to check it out, see how things were going. He'd always be in there working out in the afternoon. He would always say hi to me. We would always chat. I think it would be very rare for me to see Chuck and not stop and talk to him for a minute. There was always a Seinfeld quote. He would always do a George impersonation or a Kramer impersonation, and then I would hit him back with the other line because I knew the line that's after that line. And then he would do a physical comedy move like Kramer or George or something, and we'd see somebody doing something that wasn't quite proper, and he'd use a Seinfeld reference to get me to know exactly what he was talking about. He wouldn't even have to point and say, like, look at that guy's form. He would say something, and we communicated with Seinfeld references, which, there's a handful of people that I do that with from my generation, and Chuck was the king of it. He would hit me with ones that I would miss. I would take me a minute to get them, he was such a pro. And I don't know exactly how I feel about this, but the last time I saw Chuck was the day he passed. He was in the gym, working out, wearing a shirt that was 20 years old with a big hole in it that he always wore. It was his favorite shirt. He wouldn't throw that shirt away. That shirt wasn't going anywhere. And we stopped and we talked about Van Halen. And, I grew up listening to the David Lee Roth era Van Halen, and me and Chuck talked about music all the time, and we happened to be talking about Van Halen lately. He kind of got me into one of the older albums that I sort of missed, and we were talking about Eddie's guitar playing and all this amazing stuff. And then he started pointing out some of the Sammy Hagar albums that I didn't really get into and how they were actually Eddie's best work. And like he was such a huge music fan. And it really sort of freaked me out when Eddie Van Halen passed away a couple weeks later. And I just can't help but think that, Chuck and Eddie, that's a match made in heaven. And I'd like to imagine Chuck sitting on a log somewhere listening to Eddie play guitar. And that's my last memory of Chuck, is talking to him about music and Seinfeld. We hardly ever talked bodybuilding. Two guys that spent our entire lives training, hardly ever talked about it. And he was like that. He was like that with everyone at the gym. Everyone at the gym knew that Chuck was good for a laugh or some advice. He had a seat at the juice bar, just like Norm in Cheers. Norm comes into Cheers and he gets his seat on the corner of the bar, and that's where Chuckster sat and drank his protein shake every single day. And everyone at that gym misses him. And he was a real special type of guy. He had a sense of humor and a compassion that was rare, and it attracted people to him. And another thing was, it was only a few days before that Chuck broke out into like a full Macho Man impression in the middle of the gym one day, and he just ripped like a 30-second Macho Man impression. And I hadn't seen him do it for a while, but he did the best one. All his close friends know that. And you know, of all the things I'm thankful for, I mean, you know, we wish we had another conversation or another joke or another moment, but I honestly have thought about how thankful I am that I got to see Chuck do Macho Man one more time. And that's just how he is, man. And I just thank everyone for giving me a minute just to say that everyone at West Coast Iron is going to miss Chuck. We're working on getting a suitable photo of Chuck. We got a great one from Athena. I'm not sure if it's going to blow up big enough, but we want to put a picture of Chuck up on the wall in there and, have him up forever in the gym, because he was the best gym member you could ever want. And thank you, everybody.
Ron, West Coast Iron, my God, thanks. What a great privilege to have seen him the day before he passed. And yes, you're right. We all know the Macho Man. Fantastic, Ron. Corey Watchell.
Just want to give a shout out to a lot of the boys I haven't seen in a while from back in Winnipeg day. Ron and Jay and a lot of the friends there, but also the Vancouver people, Taz, Ricky, Joe, and Davey Max in here somewhere. Blair, how's it going, bud? I was lucky. I got to kind of live two life experiences with Chucky, because I grew up in Winnipeg here, and I got to play hockey with Jay and Ron in the group, and Joe as well is there. I think he's here somewhere. But also I was one of the first ones out in Vancouver a couple years before Terry and Chuck came out, and Joe. And so, we were probably mid-20s up until now. I only moved back to Winnipeg just recently in the last couple of years. But, from 25 to 35, 40 years old, me, Joe, and Kiko, and Taz, Davey Mack, we were all there, and Ricky, we were all together partying and living life to the fullest at our prime of our age there. And, as a couple people already mentioned, a lot of memories that we just can't really say on here, but they'll be in our hearts forever. Excuse me. So just gonna miss you, bud. And thanks for making us all part of your life. Thanks.
Thanks.
I don't know if maybe Taz has some words.
I am so happy that I was able to be a part of this today and hear everything that I've heard from. Okay, let me try that again. What I've heard from everybody, I've lived that too. Everybody's lived it. He was an amazing individual. Amazing. Sorry.
Thank you.
Bato, would it be all right if I said something?
Of course, Dolores.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dolores. I live here in Vancouver. And as you mentioned, the story about going to Mexico, I was the travel agent that booked all those crazy guys to Mexico. I had the honor of meeting Chuck and Taz, Corey, Johnny, Kiko. It was 1997 when I met Chucky, and obviously really taken away by those blue eyes, as I'm sure so many other ladies were. It was a great year. Got to celebrate with all those boys. Earls at Lougheed, I'm sure you guys remember, we spent a lot of time there. Lougheed, Earls, Diego's, man, he was a superstar on the dance floor. Terry, it's really good to see your face, by the way. And Corey, really good to see you. Hi, guys. I'm sorry that my picture's not up. I'm a bit of a mess, so I'm gonna. Anyway, it was a time of my life. It was a privilege to know him, and even though we didn't stay good friends for the rest of his time on this earth, he always touched base with me for my birthday, for Christmas, When my mom passed away, he reached out to me and was there. Also, when my dad passed away, he was also there. So as everything I've heard today, I'm in total agreement. Such a good friend. His friends were everything, his family. Bato, do you remember coming to Vancouver? I'm not sure if you remember meeting me. But anyway, I just wanted to say my condolences to you, Veronica, to you, Bato, and to you, Mrs. Straceny. My heart goes out to you guys. And please know that I feel the same way as the rest of you do. I will miss him terribly. Thank you.
Dolores, thanks so much for jumping in.
Hi, everybody. If I could just quickly, my name is Yana. Very fortunate to call Pani Straceny Bato, Charlie, our family. I'm just going to speak quickly behalf for the Czech-Slovak community. A lot of the people can't be on because they're the older generation, and like my father doesn't even own a cell phone, never mind how to use a computer. So for my parents, Shindlash family, back home, even Petr Streda, we give all our condolences. He was an amazing, amazing human being. It's very difficult for all of us back here in Winnipeg. The COVID has really hit where the older generation really, really wanted to say their goodbyes and didn't have the opportunity. So just part of the Czech-Slovak community, I just want to give our condolences for everybody. Bato, Teto, I hope you understand that, you know, we all wish that we could be a part of it and grieve. And, you know, my mom said one of the hardest things was, she said the saddest part is you should never bury your child. And, you know, it's extremely emotional, and we just wish that we could be all part of it, and hope that Bato, Teto, you understand that, you know, my father, Staria Petr Shindlash, who's in Czech Republic, and, you know, they couldn't be on. They just, it's, I wish I could go to everyone's computers and help them so they could be a part of this, but I'm just going to speak, if it's okay, on behalf of everyone in the Czech community, Slovak community. It really, really is a very sad thing for all of us to go through, and unfortunately, you know, they couldn't be a part of it, but they would like me to express their love and our community. My parents came the same year as majority of the Czech-Slovak people came in '68 to start a family, a life, and give us, the children, the opportunity of a country of freedom. And Charlie felt the same way, I know that. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yana, thanks.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, this is Moses here. I'd like to say a few words. You know, it's it really hits the heart when you see how many people actually shared some really deep moments with Chuck. I remember growing up, you know, my older brother Rich started bodybuilding, and that's kind of when I first met Chuck, when he came over. And my brother was bigger than life, you know, 6'2", 250. And it came to a point where Chuck, you know, got so big he surpassed him, and that's kind of how my relationship with Kurt bloomed, and we became really good friends. This one time I remember Kurt and Chuck were over, and Chuck would eat. Man, that guy could eat. And one moment where my brother Francis and Rich would always tell me was this one time Kurt was over, and me and him were playing, and we lost track of time. And I can still, like so many of you said, can hear Chuck's voice. I remember him saying, "Bato, I need to eat. We got to go." And that still resonates in my mind from Chuck. And he was such a selfless guy. And I just want to send out my deepest condolences to Kurt, Veronica, and Mrs. Straceny. Your immense loss is great, and I hope the best for all of you. Thank you.
Moses, thanks. And we have Coach.
There you go.
Simonek. Okay, Mr. Simonek.
I had the pleasure and the honor of being the coach of these boys, these 5 amigos, in the early 80s. And one thing I noticed about Chuck from the early 80s even to the present day, he always used to refer to me as, "Hey, Mr. Simonek." And then he'd come up with one of his one-liners. And he'd break everybody up. And I'm gonna miss this guy so much as it isn't funny. I guess that's all I can say right now.
Thank you guys for putting this together. It's been really great. We're gonna miss him so much. Love you guys.
Hey, Mrs. I thought you were gonna intervene with the story of that time we were all together in Times Square. I think like many of the stories, that's another one that's sort of a little bit off the record.
A little bit.
That fantastic time in New York City. And
how about the one at the pizza restaurant?
yeah, it's a pizza restaurant, but we should probably keep it off the call.
Yeah, I think so.
Given your beautiful daughters next to you as well as Elaine. We've heard a lot about Chuck. Many knew him as a brother, son, friend, trusted advisor, coach, which some solid, consistent themes of fierce solidarity and friendship and being larger than life, his enormous capacity to give of himself. And his memory will be with us forever. Our sorrow's massive. I think until we can convene in person and have the party that Chuck would have demanded, I'll close leaving and then hand back over to Bato for final words, Mrs. Straceny, leaving you with a Gaelic blessing. We all know with certainty that Chuck would have hoped his friends enjoy good fortune after his death. And the Gaelic blessing, may the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face. The rains fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. My friends, thanks for joining the call today. Bato, final comments and maybe Ava.
Yeah, I'd like to just say thank you, everybody, for all the kind words and great stories, the honesty. As like Ron mentioned about the friends thing, that was one thing that I looked up to as a younger brother, that he had good friends around him. And he always came home and told good stories, how he met Taz, how he met Blair. He would tell us at the dinner table stories, just energetic stories, how he fell in love with people to keep in his life. So thank you for sharing those. And I'm sure my mother and Veronica, my family, are very proud.
Hey, Mrs. Straceny.
All I want to say, I'm thanking to everybody who joined this day. And I just found out some stories I like and some I didn't want to hear, but that's no news. Other always out stuff that it's too late. But Blair, I just found out a story about you in my last conversation with Chuck, when he was telling me Blair was so big, everybody was scared of him in North End. So you were not so sane either. Anyway, I'm very grateful to everybody, and And thank you for sharing all this day. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Mrs. Straceny, thanks. Bato, over to you, and I think we can close. Do you want to say so thanks?
Again, thank you everybody for the great stories and the kind words. It's good to see everybody, and I'm looking forward to come back to Canada for a good visit. So there's nothing else much I have to say. Everyone has said pretty much most of it. So thank you again, Paul, for your speech, and Kiko and Blair and Billy, Mr. Simonik, and Yana, and I'm sorry, Corey Watchell. And if I forgot your name, Marianne, sorry, and Veronica's speech. Thank you all.
Bato, over to you to wind up the final video.
I just heard the artist formerly known as the Chuckster is in Winnipeg City.
We have word that he may be at this residence right now. We're gonna check right now.
There he is, the artist formerly known as the Chuckster.
Yeah.
Can I have a photo with you, sir? And will you sign my boobs? I have a Sharpie.
Yeah.
Walking the streets, here we are, never look back. So we took our dreams, ran like hell, lived a youth from the wishing well. Well, me and the boys made a pact, live or die, no turning back, scarred for life. Then my best friend died, lost my mind, made me hate, I can't escape.
times. Those were good times. Damn good times. Hey, take a look at this picture. Can you believe that was you? And who's that standing there in the corner? Not me. Ah, the crazy things we used to do. Sure, we was acting like a couple of kids. Good to remember. You know that it is. I still feel it like the sun on my skin. Maybe that's better. Cause these are good times. Damn good times. Talking about good times. Damn good times.
The Chuckster, you'll always be in our heart. Bato, brilliant. Thanks.
Thank you, everybody. I'll let you finish off, Jason. Thank you.
Simply a toast to Chuck, who was larger than life. Our pain is with the Straceny family and with Veronica. Love you guys. I guess it's Billy's to quote Billy. Bato, it's Straceny, bye.
Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers, everyone.
Peace.
Ciao.
Cheers.